Hey, welcome to another Tuesday training in our group. So we are live in the Women in Sales group, as well as live on Instagram right now. Hey, Instagram fam. And if you're popping in right now, just drop in the chat below what you sell, so I can actually make this training relevant, real. And I'm trying to get this light to work on me a little bit better. We'll see how it goes. Is that better for you guys? I'm not sure. We'll just go with the thing. All right, so let's see. We have a lot of insurance here in the house from what I'm seeing on Instagram, but just drop in the chat below what you sell so we can make this a little bit cater to you in your industry. Because, today we're going to be talking about how you are closing and mistakes that you could be possibly making and how to avoid these mistakes. We have a credit repair in the house. Somebody says, I look fine. Love that. It's not going to help you in sales. I sell cottages and huts. Let's go. Harley Davidson, sales manager, financial insurance, life insurance. Yeah, lots of sales everywhere. Sales and life insurance is a really, really great industry to be in, like $1 trillion industry. I'm seeing sales reps make in between freaking $50,000 to $100,000 a month in that industry. It's absolutely insane. Life insurance, another life insurance. Yeah, supplements, shopping club. All right. So when it comes to closing, I'm going to be real with you. If you've ever felt intimidated that the close was coming, just drop a me in the chat if that's ever been you, because I definitely felt like that. Holy crap. The end of the call is coming, and all of a sudden, my heart starts panting a little bit, and I start sweating. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah, I'm with you. And what is that? What is that anxiety that comes up? Because it's either one of two things. It's either that you're afraid that you don't know what you're doing, the unknown, the uncertainty. Number two, you're afraid of this person saying no, getting rejected, or maybe you're afraid of what they think of you and how you're being perceived. I don't know if anyone else has ever been in a sales conversation that made them feel uncomfortable, because I've definitely experienced that myself. There's an importance of the closing phase in the sales process. And there's so many misconceptions about closing. So many people have this myth that they think that the close happens at the end of a call, when in actuality, it does not happen at the end of a call. It happens normally in a problem finding phase. Normally when you're allowing yourself to go underneath the surface. And if you can master your tonality and master your skill level, master your ability to ask questions, you will actually have such a higher chance of being able to close somebody. Secondly, if you can stop thinking about yourself for 1 second and actually be in service of the person that you're talking to, you're going to come across as more genuine, more caring, more understanding. Most humans want to be what? They want to be understood. And so if somebody feels like you understand them in their unique situation, they're 9 times out of 10 more likely to go up with you versus someone else, because they feel understood by you. And that's what we're trying to curate in a sales process, understanding someone or a company's circumstance, understanding their pain points, understanding what they're going through, understanding that maybe, just maybe, that all of these things that are coming up for them are causing a problem that they may not even know that they have. So it is our job, it's our duty to be able to help them realize that they have these problems so that they want to change. The biggest common closing mistakes that I see, and if you take notes, time to take your notes, is number 1, neglecting the client's needs. So you're all about yourself in this call, not really worried about catering to the client in front of you or to the prospect in front of you. You're worried about yourself. Do I sound right? Do I look good? Oh my God, I hope that I do the right thing. I hope that I make the sale right. I hope that it lands well. I hope that I know what to say when this objection comes. Crap, I forgot how to overcome that objection. I'm screwed. Neglecting the client's need. Number 2, your lack of follow-up, your lack of nurturing the lead after the fact. Not all the time, so they close on the first time. And If you have a lack of being able to nurture this lead and you only call them or message them because it's the end of the month and you're trying to hit quota or whatever you're trying to do, like it's going to come across like you're real thirsty and like you actually don't give a crap about the person in front of you. 3, ignoring objections or concerns. This is one of the biggest mistakes I hear in closing, right? Yes, Jesse's right. Most humans just want to be understood. The biggest thing that I see is people in a sales call not listening to somebody's objection. Let me give you an example of this. So let's say at the end of the call, they're like, hey, Kayla, like, I really appreciate everything. This sounded great, but look, like I need to talk to my husband about this. And, timing is a little off. We're trying to sell a new home right now. And, this is a little expensive for us. We're not used to paying this much, but I really like everything and I'll definitely be back to you. And then I start going into money handling objections, and I never mention anything about them closing on their house or the fact that she wants to talk to her husband. I try to just skip over that part. I'm like, maybe if I can just handle one, everything will be good. When you only pay attention to one objection and you don't pay attention to all the objections, what happens? The person feels like you were not freaking paying attention to them, like you were not listening. And therefore, how would you care? How would you understand what they're going through if you didn't take 5 seconds to just listen to what they said? Now they're like, oh, this person is just trying to overcome my objections and close me. And then they're turned off, right? So that's what happens. Or maybe you rush the close. You're like, man, I'm just like, let's get to the end. I have another call, or because you took too long in the call. Or, I hate the objection handling part, so I'm just going to talk really fast at the end of the call versus slowing down, taking a minute, letting the person in front of you feel safe. That's the main thing that we're trying to do, provide safety, letting them feel like, hey, like this is a safe place to make a decision. Towards the end of the call, there's other times in the call where you make them feel like, hey, this needs to be a change in my life, and they feel a little like internally disturbed and they need to make a change. But at the end of the call, they need to feel safe enough to pull out their credit card or to be able to move forward in the next part of the process. And so many times, if you're rushing the sale, it seems like you're uncertain. It seems like, appreciate you, man, seems like you are taking advantage of a situation, that you are not your word, that you do not care about this person, that you are just trying to get the money. And therefore, what happens? It builds up massive levels of sales resistance. They put their guard up. Thanks, Brian. Put their guard up and they back up. Right? So that's what happens. So instead of rushing the close, I want you to slow down the close. Chill out a second. They're a deer in headlights right now. They're scared. It's okay. Let them feel like it's safe. And then the last one is not establishing enough value. If they don't feel like the value in what you're providing because of your ability to ask questions, right? That's where it comes from. Your ability to ask deep enough questions to where they have a deep enough gap to where they feel like they have to close this gap. And you have the value and you're providing by showing them that you can solve the problem that they didn't know that they really had. If that's not there and you've had a surface level conversation the entirety of the call, it's going to be very difficult for you to close. So, I want to give some real live examples, to illustrate some of this, not establishing enough value, right? I talked about it being surface level. Have you ever had a conversation with somebody and you've had an hour-long conversation, you talked about literally nothing? Or ever had a sales conversation and you felt like, did I even get to know that person? They were they were closed off the whole time. And you're like, what the heck? I'm just going through my script. I'm doing everything that they told me to do. And for some reason, this person's being completely closed off and they're not opening up to me. And then by the time you get to the end, you're like, man, this person probably isn't going to close anyways. And then guess what? They don't. So instead of just putting a Band-Aid on the wound, right, and be like, oh, like something happened in my close, we had to look at the beginning of the call and figure out where the hell you went wrong. And 9 times out of 10, I promise you, it's probably your tonality. Your ability to communicate effectively, to be able to be curious enough and considerate enough, to be concerned enough to ask questions, because you care about how something is affecting somebody. Let me give an example. Let's say I, sold a fitness program, right? I sold a fitness program, high ticket. And, I am wanting to have a legitimate conversation. I'm talking to a mom, she gained maybe 40 pounds during her pregnancy. Lucky her, I gained 68 during mine. And, she feels not like herself and she wants to lose weight. And we're having a conversation about her losing weight, right? Which is a very difficult conversation to have with someone sometime, right? Like that's not a fun conversation for them or for you, right? So, when we're talking about the entirety of the call, we realize towards the end that we really never talked about how her gaining weight is affecting her emotionally, mentally. We've just had a basic surface level conversation the whole time, and you're concerned on where you went wrong. Let's go back into understanding this person's situation. We've asked a few situation questions using NEPQ, which is neuro emotional persuasion questions. And we've found out that she's tried, 14 other different fitness programs and nothing has worked so far. She's really frustrated. And, she's had a baby 2 years ago. She hasn't been able to get off the weight. So from here, I want to understand like how going through all those programs is affecting her, how this weight is affecting her. So I might ask a question like, okay, may I ask, like, with all these programs that you've gone through, is there anything you've liked about the programs? And she tells me, well, I like the community that I've received. People have been really nice to me. I just really feel like I haven't gotten results there. Okay. Now, what if somebody gives me this type of answer in the middle of a call? I have to be in like objection handling mode from the very beginning. Because if somebody ever tells me that they've tried a bunch of programs and nothing's worked before, my little red flag should be going off and be like, hey, like, why would they buy another program if they are conditioned to think that they don't work? So what I need to do right now is have her take responsibility for the fact that maybe she hasn't been doing the work in all these programs. How do I do that? I will ask, well, is there anything that you didn't like about this program? Well, I didn't like that it was so difficult, this and this and this. Sally, I'm a little confused. You going through all these programs, you said 14, like did anybody in those programs lose weight and were able to get success for those programs? Well, yeah, this person did, this person did, this person did. Okay, may I ask, like, why do you feel like you didn't receive the success that you were looking for? And I flipped it back on her. So now she can take responsibility. Well, to be honest with you, I didn't show up, I didn't eat right, and, mentally, like, I just didn't feel like it. Okay. So we got past one little part. It's feel like you're going through a maze throughout this whole entire thing. So now that I understand that aspect, I can ask her, well, you going through this for 2 years and, going through all these programs, not having the success that you're wanting, feeling like you couldn't get there mindset wise, everything else. Like, how do you feel like this is really affecting you personally? And she starts telling me how it's affecting her. I need to bring it to a personal level. So besides it just affecting her, how is it affecting her relationship? How is it affecting her kid? How is it affecting different things in her life? And I'm getting more curious and I'm diving deeper. And this is where the sale is made, right here, where she connects personally to this issue. It's not that she wants to lose weight. Underneath all of it, it's that maybe she hasn't been intimate with her husband, in a year because she doesn't want, him to look at her, or maybe like not intimate with him with the lights on. It's something super personal to her to where like it's really devastating her. And she feels like her relationship is jeopardy. And that's why she's finally ready to try another program again. It's always something super deep. And if you don't have the willingness or the concern or the empathy or the compassion to actually sit there and figure it out, like it's going to be really difficult for you. Let's say we're talking about insurance, same thing. Insurance, right? Actually having legitimate, real conversations. Like, may I ask who would be financially responsible, if anything like did happen, to you? Who would that be? Well, that would be my daughter, Sally. And I hate to ask this. Like, would you want Sally to be financially reliable if she didn't have to? Like, you get to be willing to have deep conversations and being able to point out the one thing, the elephant in the room, and have them start thinking about the consequences of what's going to happen if they do not make some type of change today. But if I don't go deep enough in the call and get real, it's going to be very difficult for me to come back in and get them to commit later. They have to have internal tension in their body through your questioning ability, and tension for like problems in their life. Tension, not pressure, never pressure, tension. And the way that it comes across with your tonality is how it's going to be received. So if I'm asking questions one way, let's say I was like, well, how is that affecting your marriage? Listen to the tonality on that. Well, how is that affecting your marriage? Versus, like, may I ask, do you feel like this is affecting your marriage at all? I'm saying the same thing. I'm saying it two different ways. They have two different landings. One feels like you care about this person, you understand. The other one feels like you're being an asshole, right? I'm just being honest. There's strategies to avoid these common mistakes, and there's techniques for effective follow-up. There's an importance for really understanding and addressing your customers' needs, your prospects' needs. You have to be an active listener. If you keep thinking about, oh, what do I say next? What do I say next? Oh, how do I overcome that next? What do I do now? Like, you are not going to be in a place where you're actively listening, or you can pick up on the nuances of facial expressions, tonalities, and body language than if you were actively listening to somebody and really paying attention. So what does that mean? That means that you get to be a person that practices on the daily. If you don't have a bunch of sales calls that you're continuously practicing on, role play is going to be your best friend. Like, we do tons of role play in our advanced training programs where we are actively listening. We are correcting live. We're listening to tonality. We are making somebody start over, slow down a little bit. Hey, you need to breathe. You didn't look at her. You're looking away, right? And talking about advanced skills that are actually going to help and support you. But if you don't have that, find people to role play with. In the meantime, ask for feedback. I wouldn't ask a family member unless they actually are trained in something like this, because you don't want them to give you biased opinions while you're learning. You want to be encouraged, but I definitely would find somebody else in sales in your industry and be consistently role playing with somebody. Because when you role play, you put in the reps. And if I have the reps, then it's easy for me to focus and listen to what this person's going through. If I haven't put in the reps, it's a little bit more difficult for me to be able to do so. And techniques for effective follow-up. Automation's going to be your best friend. Like, I can't go and follow up with everyone all the time, but if I put in my calendar, or put out sequences, text sequence, video message sequence, email sequences to people that I've talked to, it's going to be a little bit easier for me to follow up. Now, for myself personally, I really appreciate a personalized follow up with somebody. Anybody can send a template message or send a video that has been sent to 100 people. If you actually take an extra 5 minutes to give a crap about somebody, and thanks, Mike, appreciate you, man. To actually give a crap about someone, you remembered stuff in their conversation and you reach out. Hey, Sally, you've really been on my heart today. Have you found what you're looking for, or are you still looking for ways to XYZ so that you can XYZ? I remember from our conversation, you were mentioning that you were having a difficult time with this pain point, this pain point, this pain point, and that you were really wanting this future moment, this future moment, this future moment. Is this something that you really want? Because I would love to support you. I'll be here when you're ready. right? And always with a little sense of curiosity and a little sense of, actually caring. It takes an extra 5 minutes to do that. But if you do that and you care and it's genuine and authentic, I promise you it's so much easier to be in receive mode. The more you give, the more you receive. Like, it's all about energy. And if I'm doing something just so I can close the next deal, it's going to be very difficult for me to close deals. I know it sounds weird, but if I do something because I'm really trying to help somebody solve a problem, I'm really trying to support, I really give a crap and care, it's going to be so much easier for them to want to come in and work with us because they know my heart and because energetically I've given and now I'm going to receive. Awesome. All right. So how to handle, objections and concerns proactively. I talked about this earlier in this training. You have to be like listening attentively for anything that can come up. Ladies, have you ever been on a date, one of the first dates with a guy, right? Men that are on here, us ladies, when it's the very first date with a dude, we are on red flag radar alert watch. What is red flag radar alert watch? That means we are sitting there and we are listening attentively to anything that you might say that could be a lie. Ladies that are also dating somebody, that have been dating somebody for a while, and you're having an argument, you are sitting there actively listening to anything you can catch them on so that you can one up them. Am I right, ladies? Or anything that they would say that you're like, that's a red flag, that's out. Right? Anything that they would say, man, you were sitting there, you're listening, you're like, I'm never going out with this guy again. Great. And I give you that example because for women, we are trained as little girls that our wedding means more important to us than our career, unfortunately. So we are wired and ingrained to be like always like on a search for like that partner. And so when we are in date mode, like, we are making sure that we don't mess up, especially if we've hit the third floor of life and you're past that. We are making sure like we don't have time to keep dating random people. Like, we're trying to find our person, so we don't want to waste time. So we are like actively listening to anything that could be an issue so that we can call this person out or we can remove ourselves. That is the type of attentive listening that you have to have during a sales call. You need to be listening for anything that is causing you to feel like this person might have an objection. Like how I just mentioned earlier, that if somebody was at a fitness training program and they've mentioned, hey, we've been through 14 different programs and none of them worked. Like, that is an objection waiting to happen. And if you don't know how to proactively handle that right then and right there in that moment, it's going to come up later and it's going to bite you in the ass, right? So you have to have the tools in place so that you know how to overcome that. And I taught you that earlier, so I'll teach you a new one. Let's say you're on a phone call with somebody and they mention that they have a spouse, which if you're on a B2C call, you really need to find out whether this person has kids, a family that they're taking care of. If, they're at home with someone, you get to know that information because it's going to be easier for you to understand them so that you can help them, commit to something later, right? So let's say through my conversation, I'm having a call with a woman, I'm talking to her and she's telling me about her husband. The very first thing that I'm going to ask, I'm not going to wait till the end, till I get a spouse objection. I'm going to interrupt in this moment and I'm going to say, like, how does your husband feel about XYZ, like whatever it is that you're selling, so that you can get XYZ, whatever outcome that you are suggesting. So like with my sales training, I would say, well, how does your husband feel about you acquiring the skills so that you can, bring more money into the household so that you could go on that vacation that you want? Always saying the outcome. How does your partner feel about getting whatever it is that they're trying to buy so that they can, whatever result that is that they're wanting? You can also do this in B2B deals. Well, how does your CEO feel about you increasing, your market spend so that you can provide more leads for your sales reps so that they can close more and bring more money into the company? Same thing. Always asking. When they say, well, they feel this way or this way, well, they feel great, or maybe they don't know. If they say they don't know, I'm like, well, I really honor you for doing this on your own and for figuring this out. If they say, well, they feel great about it, I'm like, well, what happens if you go to, your husband and he says no? How are you going to be able to acquire the skills so that you can bring more money into the household at that point? I'm going to do an objection handling in the middle of my sales call. And I'm always listening attentively for anything that could be causing me a problem later. Always, always, always. Let's see. So pacing the sales process to avoid rushing the close. When you get to the end, just breathe. Just breathe. You need to be in 15 minutes at least of problem finding, of going underneath the surface, figuring out what's going on, a minimum 15 minutes in a secondary call, or if you're in a one call close. So if it's a strategy session, that's a 45-minute call or more, at least 15 minutes need to be in problem finding and asking questions, going underneath the surface. And then, building value throughout your sales process. Like, you don't need to be the more like intelligent person in the room or know everything about everything. Just if you can just care, stop talking and listen and care about the person in front of you and ask intelligent questions out of curiosity, like, it's only going to build more value. You don't need to talk about the benefits and how your features and all this other stuff and how great it is. And, oh my God, like, we can help you with this and we can help you with that. Like, that isn't going to do crap. If you can really find the pain by asking questions, and then later on say, how earlier you were mentioning, that you were struggling with this and this and this. What we do is this. You're making your whole process about them versus about you. In addition to active listening, there's something that's called empathy, not sympathy, not like, I'm so sorry that you're going through this right now, but empathizing with somebody, like seeing them, being there for them, framing them. I'm so glad that, you are a person that, shows up for yourself. I know this must be difficult. I'm so glad that you're wanting to make a change in your life. Like all of you, I'm so glad that you want to show up on a Tuesday to learn. There's so many people out there that don't take the time to learn, to grow, to acquire new skills. Or there's so many sales reps out there that think that they know everything and they don't want to get a little bit better. I'm so glad that you guys are not like that, right? It's a framing people into behaving the way that, you're wanting them to behave, and always doing this with integrity, never doing this maliciously or out of ill intent. There's a value of you being patient. Just be patient with people. If you try to grab them and pull them to the line, they are going to pull back, because that's natural human behavior. But if you remove yourself and your expectations from the call and you just show up to serve, it's going to be so much easier for somebody to want to commit to something. Lastly, if you are feeling like you are not confident with the sales process, I promise you that it's just going to be a time thing. You get to learn skills. You can't learn sales overnight. I really wish you could, but unfortunately you can't. You never know what somebody's going to say in a call. Every sales call teaches you something. Every sales call is a new opportunity to learn, to grow. The bad part is if you go through a sales process and you don't learn and you don't grow, right? So, all right, dear Lord. There's comment I was there, buddy. Yeah, I agree. That would suck. Bad mistakes, bro. Oh my God, bad mistakes. All right. So, I feel like, sorry, that totally pattern interrupted me. Thanks, love. Look, your ability to, I think, who is it? Alex Hormozi was saying something the other day. It was really interesting. He was like, humans are all about learning and your ability to learn. He was like, if I hold up this red thing and I tell you every time I hold up the red thing, I'm going to hit you. On the third time I hit you, right? You duck. Well, let's say the second person I do that to, and I tell them when I hold up the red thing, I'm going to hit you. On the second time I held up the red thing, they duck. Well, it's not that they are not learning. It's that this person's learning faster by changing their behavior faster. They're smarter than the first person because they were able to change their behavior faster. They moved on the second time versus moving on the third time. And what does that tell us? Your ability to learn faster is by changing your behavior. So every single sales call that you do, you have to evaluate that sales call and see what you were doing, what things worked, what things didn't. The things that didn't work, you don't need to do them on the second call, because I'm telling you, like, you're not learning from your mistakes. Changing your behavior, changing your tone, changing the way you show up. Now, we do have two things. We do have a masterclass that's coming up on July 6th, all about objection handling. We have some of our head coaches doing that. Marco, who is a partner in 7th Level, as well as Laura, who's one of our head sales coaches on 7th Level Red side, going to be doing that entire masterclass for you. So if you're wanting access to that free masterclass, just DM me if you're on Instagram. Masterclass will give you access to that, or comment below masterclass if you're on Facebook or on LinkedIn, YouTube. We'll make sure you get access to that. And if you are, and you haven't had a call with our team about seeing, and you're a woman and you're in sales, about seeing if you would be even a fit for our sales process, we do a like 10, 15 minute call and listen to you objection handle, listen to you role play with us a little bit. If you haven't done that, so we can kind of see where you're even at, message us that you want to do a call. I think it's called, just be like, hey, I want to book a call to role play, like role play call. And we'll book a call with you and we'll listen to you and see if we can give you any pointers, any tips on there. And if you're on Instagram, make sure you DM me that, because I don't have anyone monitoring this live right now. So go ahead and just DM me that. We'll get you access to that. But otherwise, I hope that you guys have a really amazing night. It's hard learning how to do this. It is continuous practicing, learning, developing, showing up, like being consistent, being persistent. And remember that this isn't a numbers game. This is a quality game. If you're consistently, we're like, hit the numbers, like, my God, that's like so exhausting. If you can just learn the skills, you don't have to work as hard. If you can learn real masterful selling skills, learning how to use your tone, your body language, learning how to ask better questions, understanding how to be in control of the whole process. Did you know each question that you ask like allows somebody's brain, because people's brains are like a computer. So the question that I ask you will merit a response. And if I can ask you specific questions, they will merit a response. Like if I told you right now, think of blue, I want you to think of blue, think of blue, think of blue, think of blue. Well, you're not thinking about green right now, because your brain's a computer and I'm telling you to think about a color. And so you're doing it. The same thing happens in a sales conversation. If I'm masterful with my ability to ask questions, I can ask specific questions in a certain way, in a certain framework, with a certain tone that will allow somebody's mind to think a certain way. And I want them to do this because I want them to think about problems that they didn't realize they had. Have you ever met somebody, like, have you seen this pimple popper show? Like, it's really gross, like the pimple popper show, and somebody has this huge pimple on them and you're like, oh my God. And they were like, I've had this for 4 years or plus. And you're like, how the hell has this person had this thing on them for 4 years or more? And the reason why is because no one has pointed out to them or talked about it enough or mentioned it enough or asked them questions enough for them to be like, oh, this is probably a problem. I should go fix it. They just let it grow and they ignored it until somebody was like, are you going to go get that checked out? Like, that's probably dangerous. You probably should go get that checked out, and started asking them questions. Well, how long have you had that? Does it bother you? Does that make you feel uncomfortable? Well, like, when did this start? And they start asking questions and they're like, oh my God, this is a big problem. And they go get it removed. Your ability to be excellent in sales has to do with your ability to ask really good questions and know how to ask them in a way where it sounds like you care, because you should. So anyways, if you would love to hop on, again, that masterclass for free, just DM us masterclass. And if you want to get on a 15-minute role play with my team, just DM me role play. We'll get on with you. I hope y'all have a great night. Happy Tuesday. And then we will see you soon.